about 5, I guess you guys saw the abstract. And one of the things that I'm curious about, I don't know about our audience, we talk about transformation. I wanted to emphasize that point in the abstract because I'm curious what your views are on the transformational impact of 5G. So, Dr. Ghosh, if you could start off, what's your opinion? What's so transformational about 5G?
Okay, so 5G can do what 4G can't do. So, in summary, 5G, as I said, would be different technology, or it will have a different impact, as we see from today's 4G technologies. All aspects of our life will be affected by 5G, from agriculture to medical, as you saw in Dr. Goldsmith's presentation, to machine learning, to machineries, everything will be affected. We'll have massive broadband capability, as we saw in the requirement, which will provide all these great peak and edge rates, and 10,000 to 20,000x capacity using new spectrum bands, low latency applications like augmented reality, and tactile internet, Gerhard's favorite thing, and then mission critical MTC, and also massive MTC. But I think the massive MTC part can be satisfied with the current LTE release 13.
Robert, would you like to add to that, or?
Yeah, what was the question again?
What's
Ouch. Okay.
Hey, I just want to know, is it physical or dead? Is it still dead?
Yeah, ask me again in a couple of years. I guess I agree with what Amitava has said, but for me, what's transformative about 5G is the new applications that will enable that we don't have right now. The three I can think of, and one is this augmented reality, which I think has been discussed quite a bit, but we still haven't seen it. It requires beyond the communication a lot of interesting processing technology as well as location. And that's a piece that's been missing that I think is now being solved, so that we can—
The location piece?
Yeah, location so that we can overlay on the scene that we see in front of us here. We know where everything is, and we can put virtual things in their proper place, right? Like I can have you sitting down in this chair here, and I have to know very precisely where that chair is, so it's, I can render you correctly where I am. And I think that's something that's coming available now. That's also going to be leveraged by 5G. And then I think virtual reality, especially for gaming, is also starting to really step up now. You're going to need wireless to get the data to that headset. And then the final one is transportation, where I think the vehicles, especially for automated driving and even the serious driver assist that we're seeing right now, is going to be able to leverage a lot of data from other cars, and that's going to need 5G to get high data rate, pipes, low latency. So.
How about Farooq? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So what Amitava said and Robert, my company also, we say, for example, Gear VR, virtual reality, is the headset from Samsung. So my team came up with that one, and it requires 10 times more bandwidth than a 2D thing. But my view about the transformation is really, if you look at the growth of the internet, mobile internet, in the beginning, the growth was 80%, and now the growth is 8%, including the mobile. At 3 billion, when we reach the 3 billion users worldwide, it's not increasing. It's stalling there. So what about the remaining 4 billion people, remaining 60% of the humanity? So this is what motivated us, looking at 5G as a transformative technology. We have to bring the cost down. That was the reason. If you think millimeter wave is a bad idea, you can blame me for that one. I started that, and the reason, I think Sandeep already covered that. Why spectrum needs to be so expensive? Why I need to pay 65 megahertz, $45 billion? We identified 252 gigahertz spectrum. The only nature preventing us is the oxygen absorption and the water vapor absorption bands. we have 250 gigahertz spectrum available. So why we can make it cheaper enough to make it available for the 60% of the remaining humanity? And the things like the in-band backhaul, once you have millimeter with so much spectrum and direction transmissions, I mean, the backhaul becomes almost free. Okay, why we are not looking at, I mean, these type of technologies, and why we cannot just make it so low power? I mean, that's another big focus area, that we just rely on solar energy. So then what is a base station? I mean, it's a cheap piece of hardware I can throw in anywhere. It has a self-backhauling, self-energy, everything. Then we are talking about we can go and cover the remaining 60% of the humanity. Then I can claim, I mean, this is what is transformative about 5G. Otherwise, yeah, we have all the virtual reality, great things, Internet of Things. I mean, they would be happening, but they have been happening already with 4G. Yeah, but you go look at, I mean, 3 billion stalled. I mean, there's no more growth, and the cost is the showstopper there. We have to bring the cost down and look at these disruptive technologies.
So it sounds like Farooq wants to mess up your business on the top.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm going to disagree a bit with Farooq about the cost, because I don't think the millimeter wave devices are going to be cheap, at least not anytime in the near future. So I don't view the millimeter band as a way to bring cost down. I think there's other ways to bring cost down. And actually, when I think of, now, first I want to clarify what we mean by 5G, because is it going to be the first, is it 3GPP's next release? Is it, several releases down? So in my mind, I think of 5G as kind of the next generation of cellular networks at the edge of how those evolve, because I don't think we're going to be getting to 10 or 100x data rates in the next release of 3GPP. It's going to take a few iterations. But looking at that as the definition of 5G, I think what is going to be transformative is the fact that these next generation networks, they will evolve smartphones, so I don't think there's going to be a revolutionary change in smartphones. We'll get better data, but it really is the Internet of Things that these networks have to support at low cost and low power, because the cost model has to change. If my tennis shoes are connected to the internet over LTE, I'm not going to pay for the data in the same way that I pay for the data on my smartphone. So we're going to have to make the pricing structure of the networks change, which means that the cost of the networking has to change. The power requirements for the devices have to be far, far lower than they are today. And I think that that's a challenge for, even when I look at what's being proposed for 3GPP next generation releases, they're not really focused so much on how do we get these low power networks. If we can get what I define as 5G, the ability to support these low power devices in a cost effective way, that is the revolution for the Internet of Things, which actually I think has the potential to be like the next wave of the Industrial Revolution. I think the potential for monetizing all these sensors and processing the data with them is going to drive basically the next wave in economic growth.
So, Amitava, do you...
I want to respond to Andrea's question.
You don't want to respond
Yeah,
to
I want to. This is a low power wide area which Andrea is talking, which addresses all the low cost sensors and on the gas or electricity meters. Those with low power wide area networks, which we call it massive MTC, 15 billion devices, can be addressed, and this is our opinion, using the current release 13 of LTE-M. Now, it has 4 objectives, as I stated before. So you can have a battery life with 2 AA batteries for more than 10 years. You can have a coverage enhancement, so you can meet hard to reach places like basements and all, 15 dB enhanced coverage. Then you'll have cost. Cost should be equivalent or less than the GPRS modem cost, which is around $5 or so. So we can get this chip cost or modem cost around $1, $2 by 2018. And finally, you have to support large number of devices in the cell, and you can support 1 million to 5 million devices. So all these objectives can be met with the release 13 of LTE. So with
Great, keep going. I was just going to ask you, so you don't think there's a need for 5G, or you think that release 13 is going to be the enabler for IoT?
So that's my next
Just
statement. For mission critical MTC application, we need 5G. The current LTE can't support low cost, low latency applications like what augmented reality. It can't support very high data rate applications, like if you need 100 megabits of cell, it can't do that. So for those applications of mission critical machine type communication, you need 5G. But for low power wide area communication, I think LTE can do the job.
So Andrea brought up a good point about what is 5G. So I'm curious myself what the response is. I know we talked about different attributes of next generation networks that perhaps define 5G, but does 5G encompass IoT?
I think so. So as I said, 5G will encompass new racks. It will encompass new architecture where you have cloudification of most of the control and network function. You see. So it is not only new RAT, it will have new RAT which will work in closely with LTE. It will have new 5G architecture, so it can support these low latency applications. And it will support these huge Internet of Things applications.
So the question, Robert, I'll point it to you. Do you think that the explosion in IoT that we all talked about today, and probably this whole week, do you think it is dependent on 5G?
Yeah, I guess you're setting me up for what I was going to rebut to Amitava, which is that, I mean,
Because I reach your mind.
I think it intersects with, 5G intersects with IoT, but there's a lot of things that don't need to be connected through cellular.
Right.
So, I mean, they can be connected over Zigbee type interface or sensor network interface, other spectrum. Now, I think 5G is important, and the smartphone is likely to be the hub of a lot of these networks of things, but certainly we don't necessarily need to know where our refrigerator is anywhere in the world. We can just connect to the Wi-Fi that's in the house.
The reason I said that is we are in the business of making money. So we
Really?
want-
You're making money?
So we are for licensed spectrum, not unlicensed access, which Zigbee or whatever other unlicensed technologies are for.
So Robert believes that 5G isn't necessary for the proliferation or adoption of IoTs.
Well, I don't know that I would say that. I just think that they're related, but it's not, IoT is not a subset of 5G. It's a separate research enterprise that has many interactions with 5G. 5G should support it, but you'll have devices that are part of IoT that do not support 5G or 4G or whatever other G.
Gotcha. Well, Farooq, what do you think? 5G and IoT.
So until 4G, everything was about access to information. Humans accessing information, okay? We even did not do a good job at that. I pointed out 4 billion people even do not have access to the information. But the next step we can see in parallel is now is universal capture of information. Okay. So how we are going to, so now humans, we are creating content, continuously uploading more and more, but now also the things in the Internet of Things is going to generate now predictions about trillions of sensors. They are going to generate data. So it's a kind of how I capture all that data and bring it back to the cloud and do the analytics and make that valuable to both humans and machines. So it will be more humans accessing machine data, machine accessing humans data. Like if I have heart rate monitoring and other things, I do not need to worry about that. But somewhere in the cloud, I mean, that data is continuously being analyzed and decisions are made that I'm informed about that. So it's humans to humans already happening. Humans accessing machine information, machines accessing human information. So the part that we need to think about 5G is how I can enable this universal of capture of information. So this information, I mean, depending on what I'm capturing can be, I mean, let's say, surveillance cameras are, so the information can be very large. So we need to design the 5G to take into account, I mean, thinking now differently, I mean, not only access to information, but also universal capture of information. Where the 4G systems, we did not have that type of mindset.
Well, it sounds like to me, for just to come back to that point, it sounds like your opinion is that for IoT to really take off, we need 5G. I mean, given the use cases you outlined right there.
Exactly, and bringing the cost down, that's the one key motivation for 5G. I mean, so I cannot even pay, I mean, many people in the world, I mean, their monthly income is $60, right? And our monthly subscription plan is $60. So even if they pay all their monthly income, I mean, they can barely have access to the information, right? So now, capturing universal information, so I mean, some of the data we saw,